One of the best parts about our taking the Regents show on the road is the opportunity it gives us to learn more about the great campuses that make up the UW system and how each of them, in their own unique way, is meeting the needs of the state. Here to share UW-Milwaukee's story is our host, Chancellor Mark Mone.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Regent Vice President Peterson, President Cross. You could not have set the stage better for some of the things that I am happy to share with you this afternoon. And I would say right out of the gate that what you're going to hear from UW-Milwaukee is simply representative of what all of my colleague chancellors would present and what everybody in this room stands for in terms of delivering what Wisconsin needs. So thank you for this opportunity. Board of Regents, wonderful to have you here in Milwaukee, and I'm pleased to be able to share with you how we, in fact, meet Wisconsin's needs in the unique context that we do. The structure that I'll use, I always like to provide an overview, is to talk about, first of all, Milwaukee's background and unique role. Many of you know several of these things about Milwaukee, but I hope that there will be some unique insights with respect to how we meet them. We'll talk about, since we last met, our highlights and progress, some of the momentum underway. Specifically, the heart of the talk is around how we are addressing several of the needs, not all of them, but certainly some that we think are quite acute. And then last, we'll wrap up with an argument for investing, continuing to invest and make further investments in UW-Milwaukee as well as UW system continuing in that way. UW-Milwaukee today. This snapshot is descriptive, and the number 1 at the top describes there's only one in the state. There's only one public urban research university. I'd like to break that down just a little bit. Milwaukee is large, it's diverse. We have, from an economic driver perspective, many people would often say, how Milwaukee goes, so goes the state of Wisconsin. I'd like to reinforce that in one of my closing comments, not quite done yet, but one of my closing comments will be on that exact theme. That as Milwaukee has grown and developed, it's in part because UW-Milwaukee has grown and developed. And I would argue that there's a tripart relationship, that the state absolutely benefits from the relationship, the symbiosis, if you will, between UWM and Milwaukee and the larger state. And I'll make that case in a number of different ways today. So that's what the number 1 is about. It's about research and partnerships, and it's about filling the talent pipeline and providing access. And I'm going to talk an awful lot today about that particular issue using an equity and diversity lens throughout a number of my comments and examples. We have across our 3 campuses 27,444 students. This is something that we think is vitally important, and I'm going to continue to talk about those linkages through the talk. 83% of our students are from Wisconsin, and the 17% that are from out of state and international are roughly 40% of those students that are out of Wisconsin are international. About 60% are from other states. 37% first generation, and I think you can appreciate what that means in terms of the differences when you haven't prepared, you haven't had family mentors, you haven't built savings. It's a different type of background. Being a first-generation student myself, I can completely appreciate that. I want to point out, when we talk about diversity, I was on a panel yesterday dealing with, it was an HPGM, what we call Hispanic professionals in greater Milwaukee, and they're tracking how the population of Hispanic individuals in this state is growing, but the actual income is not, and opportunities are not. And we were talking about that on this panel. And what I pointed out in that panel is that 61% of UW-Milwaukee's Hispanic students are first generation. So think about how much more the issues are when we talk about lack of savings, lack of role models, lack of some of the preparation when you have diverse populations. In terms of students of color, undergraduate, 35%. And this is an interesting statistic, 5,300 students, and that number has remained pretty constant over the last decade. So if you think about that, the numbers of individuals who have stayed in this state and contribute to the talent pipeline is significant. And the other thing that wraps that up is the bottom line on this slide, where we have almost 190,000 alumni, over 75% of whom stay in Wisconsin, but that reflects retirees who for some reason don't always stay in Wisconsin. I can't quite figure that one out, but what we have done is tracked for the first decade, and we know that that number of alumni who stay in Wisconsin is actually 85%. So that's a really important statistic from a talent pipeline perspective in light of what President Cross and Vice President Peterson have talked about. In terms of some unique things about UW-Milwaukee, we have 850 online classes, which is the largest number, as well as the largest number of online students in the state of Wisconsin, over 10,000 or approaching 10,000. We have today been recognized in the U.S. News and World Report for the master's level. We're in the top 16%. For the doctorate of nursing practice, we're in the top 11%. We're also the largest nursing program in the state of Wisconsin. We have more veterans at 1,000 than any other 2- or 4-year institution in the state of Wisconsin, and we have more than any campus in a 6-state surrounding region. Very important, and it's something that I'll refer to later in terms of some of the work that we do. We have the only school of freshwater sciences, and I'm not going to talk at length about that because we're going to have another presentation after this one around our freshwater collaborative, of which several of our leaders, not only at UWM, but across the system, are working to develop something that's unique and unprecedented in the history of Wisconsin, and that is how UW system is working on the 10 Grand Water Challenges. But we are happy to take a key role in that. The final unique thing about UWM, and these are just a few of the many, is our school of, in the Peck School of the Arts, where we have a top 20 film program, which was recognized again this year as top 20. Why that's significant is that Milwaukee Film Alliance, about 2 years ago, did a study. And this surprised me, having been here for some time, knowing the importance of brewing to the state of Wisconsin, in particular southeastern Wisconsin. The employment today in the film industry in the metro Milwaukee region is 5 times that of the brewing and distribution. Think about that for a moment. 5 times as many people employed in film. It's pretty remarkable across a number of different things. In fact, the rate of growth of employment in film is twice as high as the average employment growth rate in this region. The heart of it is our film program. The heart of it is the graduates who have gone out. For example, Milwaukee Film Festival. Milwaukee Film, of which Regent Tracy Klein has been a longtime supporter, chair, and strong leader, will tell you that we have moved up into one of the top film festivals in the country. One of our alumni, Jonathan Jackson, is the executive director and the star of that. That's just one example. There's many, many others. But that's just one example of the impact and the types of things that our graduates do. Positive progress, real quickly. Many of you were here to celebrate. Thank you for joining us as we were redesignated as a Research One university this year. Originally, we recognized that and were recognized as that by the Carnegie Institute in 2016. We've continued to do that. And this really speaks to the quality of the faculty at UWM, the perseverance, the dedication, and the deliberate intention that we have toward maintaining research in addition to access, which is, again, that unique part of UW-Milwaukee. We were one of 2 campuses to receive this award, the recognition for being focusing and having outstanding programs in undergraduate research. One of our students went to the White House, one of 50 students, to be able to talk at the White House about their research. Pretty remarkable. We celebrated this year 50 years of Black and Diaspora Studies at UW-Milwaukee. We had the distinguished professor, Evelyn Higginbotham from Harvard University, who's the chair of history, distinguished professor, who came and gave a keynote address at this. She had received in 2014 her honorary doctorate from UWM. She was a 1969 graduate, one of the remarkably prominent historians in the country, and it's wonderful to have Dr. Higginbotham on campus. We celebrated this year the 10th anniversary of the Zilber School of Public Health. I'll talk about the Zilber School in a number of different areas, but this is important because it's the only freestanding accredited school of public health in the state of Wisconsin, serving the needs of a remarkably important urban community. Our campaign, I'm happy to report, we received official word earlier this week that we passed $230 million for a campaign that had an initial goal. We haven't quite finished yet. Our initial goal was 175. We raised it to 200, passed through that, and today we're at 230. To put this in perspective, our previous campaign was at about $125 million in terms of what it came in as. So it's substantial, and this bodes very well for our endowment, future scholarships, research, and engagement in the community. Finally, we continue to be recognized in the top LGBT-friendly campuses, and when we talk about this award, it's not the top 25 or 40%, it's literally the top 30 in the nation. It's one of our strengths, and again, it's about intentionality. These things don't happen by accident, they are very deliberate and focused. Now, the heart of the talk. Thank you, President Cross. Thank you, Vice President Peterson, for setting the stage so well. This is perfectly teeing up what I'd like to share with you. There's 4 major areas that I'll talk about, and they are represented here. I'm sorry, I hit that microphone in practice a couple times too. Gesture a little too much. So you can see the 4. I'll go through them. I won't read them. But I'm going to use a format where I'm going to talk about some of the needs and then talk about some of the solutions. And then I'm going to follow each one with an example of a student who brings it to life. One area that we all know, across dozens of different health needs that we have in the state and frankly the nation, there's 2 in particular that I'll focus on. Opioids is one. We all have friends, family members, know of individuals who have been affected by this crisis. There was an article, it was like earlier this week in the Journal Sentinel, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and it talks about how opioids are even now affecting trees. It must be in the water. I didn't read the article, but it must be environmental, the toxins and things like that. Our colleagues in the School of Freshwater Science, I'm sure, could tell me much more about this. But we know the issues are significant. We know they're real and need to be addressed. We also know that asthma affects 25 million Americans. And it's all too personal, it's all too close, and I'll hold off on stories. If you give me the right adult beverage tonight, I can tell you more of those. But I can tell you this is significant, and we've sought out to address both of these areas. Well, more broadly, let me just first of all mention one of the keys to this. We have a partnership in this region. It's called the Clinical Translation Science Institute. We have, with the Medical College of Wisconsin alone, 50 of our faculty that have joint appointments with the medical college, and between 100 and 150 people at the medical college in terms of faculty who have joint appointments at UWM in different ways. Marquette University, Milwaukee School of Engineering, and Concordia are also involved in this. It's something that we have been receiving funding for almost a decade now, and it underlies the premise of when we talk about translational, it takes scientific discoveries and applications in the lab to the bedside. So that's the translation. Take it out of the lab into bedside, into patient care. So that's the heart of much of this. One of the things that we're doing in the asthma side of things is developing a drug that frees up individuals from the incorrect use of inhalers or the fact that you need inhalers at all. And if you know anybody with asthma, it's oftentimes many times a day, and it's a very concerning type of disease to have. But if you can take a pill once or twice a week that addresses this, it's substantial in terms of what it means from a treatment perspective and longevity, number of important things. So we've been working with, our faculty have been working with faculty at Columbia University and received a startup grant because they've discovered a new drug called MIDD0331, which I'll explain at some other time, again, if you're interested. But it's very important as a new pathway for treatment. On the opioid side, we know that there's victims of opioids that are beyond the actual victim, but the secondary victim oftentimes includes family members. So our researchers in this particular study are looking at family members. They're interviewing a very sensitive audience, the kids, and in particular, the dependents of individuals who have been in opioid abuse or opioid overdose situations. And they've been involved with better ways of training kids who are going to oftentimes be, when mom or dad, big brother, big sister, have an opioid crisis, they're going to be the ones that are going to oftentimes have to administer the Narcan. That's a very important, very high-risk type of situation. So behavioral issues, family issues, that's just one aspect of some of the things that we're looking at. So one of the things that when we talk about health, we know across the state, when you array the occupational needs in the state, we know that nursing is, if not at the top, depending on where you are in the state, it is substantial. We anticipate that in the next couple of years, and very quickly next couple of years, we're going to be 9,000 nurses short. I was with Kathy Jacobson, the president of Freighter Health yesterday, and she was telling me that they have hired since September of last year 590 nurses, and they could use that many more. And you talk to any healthcare provider, and that's exactly the state that we're in. Southeastern Wisconsin next year 7 counties will need 2,500 additional nurses. We need to fill this pipeline. It's significant. I'm telling you that from the perspective of the largest nursing program, and we cannot do more. That's another topic for further discussion. But I'd like to show you a story of one student who's helping.
I received my letter of acceptance to the nursing program, and a few weeks later found out that I was pregnant. So I had my daughter, and they actually brought in a camera into the class. I could log in virtually, and I could watch my lectures while breastfeeding Marilyn. I could watch my lectures while changing a poopy diaper. And then there was an instructor that actually let me bring Marilyn to class. They really listened to the type of learner that I was and tried their best to figure out a way to make it work. I was blessed to be considered for a Shanghai International Nursing Skills Competition, and we ended up placing first place. I never in a million years could have imagined ending up going to Shanghai and, winning first place for a nursing skills competition. I have decided that I will be continuing on with UW-Milwaukee and become a doctorate of nurse practitioner. I'm sure that I will cry at graduation just thinking that I remember watching my mom walk across the stage and how inspiring that was to me. I am so excited to be able to show that to my daughters, and I hope that I can continue to be that role model and just to prove to them that if you have a dream, there is a way to accomplish it.
All right, great. So this is an example of one of the non-traditional students that UW-Milwaukee excels at serving. And frankly, almost 40% of our students are non-traditional. And what that means is that they're outside the traditional age range of 18 to 22. That's also one of the reasons why our students have such remarkable success in the workplace, because they've worked typically before they graduate. So they've got a work ethic that is remarkable. So that's one of the needs, health. The second one I'm going to talk about is around entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship is something that we continue to have a chronic issue around. The Kaufman Index, the most recent report that came out, I believe it was in April of this year, February of this year, they have an index across the bottom. You see the 4 cells, the 4 on the left of the 5. And on the right-hand side in the gray, you see the early stage entrepreneurship or CASE index. That's the composite across these 4 categories. If you can't rate it, it's rate of new entrepreneurs, opportunity share, startup early job creation, and startup early survival rate. This state ranks 46th out of 50. In the box startup early job creation, number 1, the box in the middle, we're 50th out of 50 states. This is for data from 2015 to 2017, so it's over that 3-year period. That's the most recent data for which there's a 3-year window. This is appalling. This is concerning. If we think about these are the investments that are the future from a growth and opportunity for individuals, knowing how many other states find that this is where there's the most job creation is around small and entrepreneurial firms. So what are we doing about it? We have opened recently, last month, the Lubar Entrepreneurship Center and Welcome Center. I hope you can join us at the reception that we're going to have tonight and see some of the types of activities that we're doing, take a tour, learn more about the programs that are there. Let's talk about some of the outcomes and the activities. We'll start on the left-hand side of this column with one activity. It's around our student engagement, the types of things that we do in the LEC or Lubar Entrepreneurship Center. We've had over 6,500 different types of engagements in the last 3 years without the building open. Wait till we open the building and see what we can do then. This is distributed in a lot of different areas. We have engaged since 2012 with a Student Startup Challenge, and we've had 100 teams, and they represent 168 participants since 2012. The important point about this is the types of add-on companies and the types of funds raised, which I'll talk about next. NSF has a program that started at Stanford. We've sent a lot of faculty and students to Stanford. They're called Innovation Fellows, and they get trained and they come back, and we're the hub. So we work with 4 other universities in the region, and we have these clusters of faculty, students in particular, and community mentors. At any given time, there's 80 to 100 mentors in this program alone. They have had $4 million in startup fundings, and we have 22 going concerns as a result of NSF. I-Core, Innovation Core, is what this stands for. Fresh ideas, you can appreciate this is when we engage with freshmen. So what we want to do is have opportunities, not as juniors and seniors, not as grad students, but start early, start young, get this idea inculcated as you're a student at UWM. That's why we combined the Entrepreneurship Center with the Welcome Center to put that brand on UW-Milwaukee as an entrepreneurial, innovative university. This is an example. Since we've started this since 2016, 3,400 student engagements. This is in pop-up classes. This is in all types of interactions exposing students to the wonderful opportunities of entrepreneurship. The final area is our partnership with Scale Up. Scale Up Milwaukee focuses on companies that are $1 million on average and sometimes slightly above, because these are successful firms that have made that launch. They've gotten through all the initial funding, the obstacles that you have as a startup. So they're running a payroll today. They're at $1 million in revenue. And we take these companies, the goal is to give them the skills in a composite way, some of the standard classical business skills that you oftentimes don't have as an inventor, as an innovator, as an entrepreneur in the beginning. We've had 71 companies graduate, and by the way, we host that program now in the Lubar Entrepreneurship Center. It's moving in there. We had been delivering this program in the Zilber School of Public Health, and it's our faculty who deliver this program. 71 companies have graduated, 23% revenue growth, 800 new employees for these firms since that time. That's the type of growth that we need to spur and continue to reinforce. So again, needs with solutions. So I'd like to share with you now a story. James Van Erden is on the right. Matt Kemper is his business partner on the left. And I'd like to talk a little bit about their story. They're also recent graduates.
The summer of 2016, I had the idea to dehydrate watermelon, and it actually tasted pretty good. And I came to UWM, and I found the Student Startup Challenge, and they helped nurture the idea into Light Fruit Company. The Student Startup Challenge was able to give me a small grant to get my first 4 dehydrators and some packaging. But even more important is the knowledge that I've learned through events sponsored by UWM. We had the opportunity to meet with food and beverage startups and manufacturers throughout the Milwaukee area, really accelerating the business. Over the next year, Matt and I were able to compete in and win 7 different business plan competitions. We were able to get a TV spot on Project Pitch It. It's a local version of Shark Tank, and we were awarded $10,000 on that TV show. This summer, we're going to be working hard at launching our production facility, so we'll begin manufacturing and packaging and shipping our product. I love my time at UWM, and I'm excited to apply everything that I've learned thus far and see where it gets me.
Great. So in the interest of time, I'm going to not tell you the story right now about another successful entrepreneur. Her product is in the bag in front of you if you are at one of the tables here, where Indulgence Chocolate is one of our very successful student entrepreneurs. Fascinating story behind that, and perhaps at the end, if you're interested, I can tell you more. The third issue that we know about as one of the more prominent issues in the state of Wisconsin is around education. This morning in the Education Committee, we had a presentation that the Regents have been very focused on around the teacher pipeline. We have some activities and aspects at UW-Milwaukee, like many schools of education across the state, in terms of growing that talent pipeline. But I'm going to talk about something different. I'm going to talk about the achievement gap. I'm going to talk about one of the most significant issues, not just in urban areas, but frankly across the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin occupies the most unfortunate position in terms of the black-white achievement gap in high school. We are 50th out of 50. And that gap continues in college. And I can tell you on the Hispanic versus white, we are number 43 out of 50. Neither of these numbers is acceptable, and we have to do something about it. This is not just Milwaukee, this is across the state of Wisconsin. The statistics that I'm going to share with you now, if you haven't heard these before, are going to be compelling. And they'll make you wonder why, and they'll hopefully motivate you to have the same angst that we have at UW-Milwaukee. These numbers are very concerning. In a freshman class in Milwaukee, and I'm talking now about the larger metro Milwaukee area, not just the city of Milwaukee. And frankly, these numbers don't change a whole lot across the state, and I can show you additional graphs and numbers. 20 high school freshmen start, about 13 of those are going to graduate from high school. And you know what? Within 6 years, only 2 of those students will graduate from college, 2 or 4 year. Think about that. What does that mean for that individual, the individuals we're leaving behind? What does that mean for their families? And what does that mean for employers and society? I said unacceptable. We have to do better. And I have made a commitment, and this campus has made a significant commitment as an Access University to do something about it. What are we doing about it? Let's talk specifically in some of the headway, some of the progress that we're making. You've heard me talk before, and I've had Superintendent Driver and President Martin from MATC and MPS. Today, Superintendent Driver has moved on, and we have Superintendent Posley. Both of those individuals are Panthers, by the way. We're very proud of their UWM work. We have done a lot of things that have delivered on helping close this gap. One of the things that we know with the premise of M cubed, which is to transform the region through education, is a number of specific activities. So some of the outcomes include the improved transfers across our institutions through better aligned coursework and curriculum. We've had a number of summer bridge programs that increase the number of students that go from high school on to college. We have students that are getting credit-bearing math courses at MATC and UWM at rates that we've never seen before. So let's talk about some of the specific outcomes, and there's an extensive dashboard that I could show you. On the far right-hand side, one of the things that is, well, let's start with the box at the bottom. One of the most important things that often Regents and others ask me about is, yeah, do more students graduate? Let's keep the focus on that. Take a look at that box. In the history of MPS, I think you have to go back at least to the 1930s to see the types of numbers that we're seeing today in terms of graduation rates. In other words, this number has been intractable. It has been very difficult to move beyond 60%. Today, we're at almost 67%, and I anticipate that we will be by next year high 60s, if not breaking that 70%. That's phenomenal because it means that many fewer generations, that many fewer individuals left behind. The FAFSA rate, we're one of the leading urban areas in the country today in terms of FAFSA completion. And you know if you don't complete the FAFSA, you are not going to college for most students in this region. It's a pathway, it's the opening of the door. We can talk about some other important statistics in terms of some of the things that are happening, and it's very compelling. But one of the things that I also need to point out, as impatient and as urgent as we are, we know this takes time. We know that oftentimes high school students enter 9th grade, and I'm talking not just MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools, I'm talking in a lot of choice and charter schools, and I say this with experience. We have 14 charter schools. We know the data. I can tell you that many students enter high school, and they are 3 years behind at that point. They're 3 years behind in math and reading. You cannot make that up that quickly. So there's significant issues that we are facing, and it takes a long time. The lower left, what I just clicked on, is a quick story I want to tell you about a program where we had the first graduation last week. It's the result of our M cubed work. It's called the Early College Program. We started this program last year. In one semester, students come to MATC 4 days a week after school, and then they come to UWM toward the end of the week. They get 7 credits at Milwaukee Area Technical College in math and English, and then we give them an educational psychology course. All 10 of these credits are transferable into any 4-year institution. 32 students graduated. They had the program for free. We're scaling it to 80 next year. This program will ultimately be scaled to have hundreds of students in it. They're picking up college credits for free, and that was in one semester. We're going to have 19 credits next year for those 80 students. So they'll get 19 credits for free. That gives them a huge leg up, but it does some other things as well. Here's some of the quotes from that program. Even though I struggled, I still feel motivated to attend college. Getting to come to MATC and UWM was a great experience, made me want to keep studying. I can tell you a majority of the students had never been on a college campus before. They were intimidated. This is about confidence. Here's another student. She said, college is hard, but so is life. Great realization. So being able to have a sneak peek to this new chapter of my life was much needed and great appreciated. I have to tell you a foil to this, and that is the student who said, you know, I've been kind of slacking off in high school. I was kind of sliding. I thought when I got to college it would be the same way. I was going to pull the wool over their eyes too. She said, within a week, I realized this was not the case. I had to really change my whole outlook. And she said, I'm really glad. It was the hardest thing I ever did, but it's the most rewarding. But the perhaps most telling story, and this speaks to life in Milwaukee for unfortunately too many individuals. This student said, I never thought I'd make it to college, graduate, or even live this long. So thank you all for giving me more hope. I can tell you with the family and the students and the educators who were there last week, nothing got more applause than this, and it brought tears to some people's eyes because it's real. This is the challenge that unfortunately too many individuals face in this region and frankly in other areas of the state as well. We don't have a unique ownership of this particular issue. We have a state that has affluent and relatively affluent individuals, and then we have a number who are impoverished. And that's the reality. We have on our campuses nationally 50% of students who report food insecurity. That number is actually higher in some of our campuses. These are some real and significant issues. So one of the students who helps tell the story, of whom we're very proud, is Traquan. He graduated this semester, and I'd like him to talk about his story.
I was the first male in my immediate family to walk across the high school graduation stage. I had a $100,000 scholarship to go to Morehouse. I had a 2.97 when we were supposed to maintain a 3.0. So I had lost $75,000 that was left on my scholarship. That's when I returned home to come to UW-Milwaukee. So I work as a site coordinator advisor for Milwaukee Public Schools, college and career centers, working with students on college essays, scholarships. So when I get this master's degree, it's not bragging rights for me. I feel like it's bragging rights for the community. And that's why I do it, working in education, to change lives, to impact students, and to be a role model. I think it's just surreal. And I can't wait to just walk across that stage and be able to take the degree back to my mom, my brother, my daughter, just to be able to show everyone else it's possible. I did it, you can do it. I feel like losing a scholarship was the best thing that happened to me. Coming to UW-Milwaukee made me grow faster. It helped me learn more. It allowed me to get a bachelor's degree and now a master's degree.
Isn't that neat? 5,300 students' success stories are like that at UW-Milwaukee this year. His is incredibly powerful. The last need that I'm going to talk about, and you know there's many more, but it's around the workforce. So again, we were set up very well for this, and I'll share some more chocolate with you later for helping me with that setup. That, by the way, is one of Wisconsin's important needs, chocolate. We're helping fill that in. Okay, so with respect to the Wisconsin's workforce needs, I don't think that it could be said better than how President Cross said it. Every time we visit, I've been asked to wait to make sure we have all the regents back, and we have almost all the regents back. Vice President Peterson, what do you advise?
I would advise to keep moving forward.
Okay. Okay, thank you. As one regent said, I knew your comments were hot. I didn't know that they were that hot. Another perspective we have to look at is, I'm telling you, the alarm was a false alarm. Apparently it's the humidity in one of the parking garage areas. Just another argument for capital budget improvements. I'm sorry, yes. You know, that if there's a headline coming out of this, I hope that's what it is. You know, I had some momentum going, and now it's going to double the length of my. No, I'm just kidding. I think we can get it back and keep that momentum going. We were talking about workforce needs, and I don't think you know. I have to tell you, I had an editorial recently where I said 9 out of 10 CEOs tell me the number one issue that they have is you know, where do I find the talent when I need it and the right type of talent. A lot of people wrote back and said, very nice, well done, but who's that one CEO? You know, who doesn't need talent? I'm sorry, it's just that pervasive in terms of what we all are on the hunt for. So I don't think I need to talk at length. There's a lot of details behind these, but one is about the state of Wisconsin, which we're projecting, and when I say we, it's studies with M7 and Milwaukee Metro Association of Commerce and Manpower in terms of funded work that WEDC has helped support. We know the workforce needs today are approaching 100,000 in Wisconsin in terms of employment opportunities. In southeastern Wisconsin alone, that number is exceeding 35,000. So those are the openings that we have right now. About 60% of those openings require a 2-year or 4-year degree. So this is significant in terms of what type of preparation is required. So what we're doing is we're creating partnerships. And again, the theme here is around meeting Wisconsin's needs, but through collaboration. And that's the key. We don't have the wherewithal, and these problems are so significant, nobody can do it alone. So, for example, when I talked yesterday with Kathy Jacobson at Freighter, what we were talking about is how we're working together in some significant areas on the types of things that I'll share in a moment, but it's collaborative approaches. And so this is where our alumni, and we know the number is larger in terms of who's actually in the workforce. About a year ago, I was able to announce our partnership with Northwestern Mutual Data Science. Institute with Marquette University. This is over more than a $40 million investment on the part of the three institutions with three goals. Increase the talent pipeline in data sciences, which we know today includes the traditional MIS, IT, CIS types of areas, but really expands artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data analytics, and many other fields. We need that talent. Those fields are transforming those disciplines are transforming everything from manufacturing, healthcare, data, analytics, and education, and many, many other areas. So this is important. The second goal is to have Milwaukee recognized as more of a tech talent hub. And the third one is to solve applied research issues in data sciences. Very important for the future. The next area I've talked somewhat before about, but I'd like to share it with you, just a brief update around the Higher Ed Regional Alliance. Let's talk about this in terms of a graphic that I think helps spell it out pretty well. The goal across the middle, right under the bar, is to increase the percentage of individuals in the M7 region with high-quality 2- or 4-year degree or advanced certificate to 60%. That number today is in the 40s. Across the state, we're also in the 40s, and there's different pockets. What's fascinating is the different pockets. So, for example, in southeastern Wisconsin, Racine, Kenosha, and Milwaukee pull up the bottom. You have counties like Ozaukee and Waukesha counties that are actually doing quite well. They're not at 60%, though. None of us are at 60%, so we really need to raise that bar. 3 goals: increased educational attainment. Dr. Ford of UW-Parkside and Dr. Martin of MATC have done an incredible job leading this goal. They have helped us procure $500,000 in funding and in-kind support from College Completion America and some of the support in terms of organizations that are there, and they've held a number of workshops, conferences, where we've had hundreds of individuals from our respective institutions who 18 2-year and 4-year. Every single public, private, 2- and 4-year in the M7 region is at the table. Presidents and chancellors of all those universities and institutions of higher ed. We have other partners. So we have Regent Hall from the Milwaukee Urban League, sits on our steering committee. We have Greater Milwaukee Committee, M7. We have Hispanic professionals of Greater Milwaukee. Milwaukee Urban League, we have the Hispanic Collaborative and a number of organizations that are working on these 3 goals. Educational attainment, we need to get more students through college, but you know, like I said earlier, we need to get them through high school. So we have linkages with organizations like Greater Expectations of Racine. And this is pivotal because they work with business and K-12 systems. We have linkages with Milwaukee Succeeds. Again, it's that K-12 linkage. We've got to bring the pipeline together. Having been here for a long time, we know this is a long game. You don't change educational outcomes overnight. It's amazing how it takes 18 years to get high school graduates. It's a long haul. It's really important to recognize that. The second is around innovative programming, or what we call the program array. So when we talk about that, we're talking about oftentimes articulation agreements, and we're talking about what we know as 3+1, 2+2, programs where we have dual enrollment and better agreements to get students through college quicker. Think about an engineering degree. Many people would say it can't be done in 3 years. But if you do work with the right courses and the right faculty and the right commitments from superintendents and high schools, you can actually increase that number of students who actually come into college with advanced placement in a significant way. There's a lot of different innovative programming that we do across and within our institutions. And then the third one is around making a better bridge between employers and the higher ed institutions. Just as a practical example, we have employers such as Rockwell that cannot simultaneously hire at 18 institutions in southeastern Wisconsin. In fact, they hire from 14 institutions globally. Only 14, think about that. And so they have them all on a grid. I'm happy to report UWM does quite well on that grid, but I have to say that it would be so much easier for them to be able to access a lot of the talent in this region and for the talent to be able to stay here if they had a portal. And that's what we're creating, is a portal so that it works both ways. One is that employers have a simpler way to access talent across the 18 institutions, but also so that our students have better opportunities for all those different employment opportunities. The conversation with Kathy Jacobson, the president of Freighter, yesterday was exactly about this area. Given the shortage in nursing, how can the institutions collaborate better and the big 5 healthcare employers in the region collaborate better to have ways to overcome the bottlenecks in nursing. And we know the bottlenecks in nursing are twofold. One is the nurse educator, and the other one is the simulation centers, because all our clinical settings are over capacity right now. So we're working through some of the details on that. Don't expect a big bang in 6 months on this. This is going to take at least that long in terms of the discussions, but it's very important, and this is the type of thing that HERA is working on. The nice thing about healthcare, as Regent Grebe knows, is that in this community we have the big five. So we don't have 4,000 manufacturers on this front, and we also don't have two. So you don't have two that are just competing with each other. So we think there's an awful lot of openness toward this. From our preliminary discussions with healthcare senior leaders, this is a huge win for the region. So this is just one example. Across the bottom, you can see the number of students and what's at stake. And you can also see the fact that it's unprecedented. This is a world that is marked by competition. Higher ed is about competition oftentimes. But we're dropping those walls and we're saying the needs of the region are much larger than any one of us. We have to come together, and it's this great spirit and collaboration. So I'm really proud of what we've done, and really want to recognize again Chancellor Ford for her co-leadership in this really important initiative. In terms of the piece that's important is the personalized stories. This is a recent alum, and I'd like her to be able to tell her story.
I figured that going to UW-Waukesha was a good option for me because I would be able to live at home. My parents have been a really big support system for me in making decisions for my future. My dad graduated from UW-Milwaukee, and it's part of the reason why I chose to go to UW-Milwaukee myself, because he had a great time and he's very successful. After UW-Waukesha, I transferred to UW-Milwaukee and I declared finance as my major. The Panther Foundations for Success is an internship development program that equips undergraduate students with the skills and capabilities to have a seamless transition within the corporate workplace. When I joined PFS, I had interviews from Harley-Davidson and Rockwell Automation, and I picked Rockwell Automation to fulfill my internship for the summer of 2018. At Rockwell Automation, I was able to complete a global margin analysis. In addition, I was able to travel to Monterrey, Mexico to complete an inventory audit. What I like the most about UWM is the support system I have here. Victoria Pryor has been a very big support system in my life. Not only is Victoria the director of PFS, but she also is in charge of the BCC, which stands for the Black Cultural Center. And it's been a phenomenal experience to get to work with her.
So what I really like about this story is not just how proud we are of Ashley, but her father, Brentel, who has been so important for our Alumni Advisory Board, and the fact that this is underscoring Panther Foundations for Success. This program is a partnership with today 9 different Milwaukee area organizations, including some of the leading firms from Northwestern Mutual, Rockwell, Harley-Davidson, and others. And it's a huge success story. I think with a conversation with We Energies yesterday, not to commit them, but they sound like they're pretty close to jumping in as well. So it's quite neat. So when we aggregate and summarize across a lot of these different areas, you have a handout, and this has been distributed by our Vice Chancellor Van Harpen earlier this morning in a couple of different the business and capital areas, but you have this. This is a summary of some of that data, and it shows that across the left-hand side, what we did is we aggregated from a number of different data sources what are the fastest growing fields and the highest need areas in the state of Wisconsin. These are the needs on the employment sector, and then the question is, how are we filling them? What's the solution? Every year, and I can go back and show this data for the last decade. These are the approximate numbers across the last decade. 1,800 graduates in health-related fields. Now, keep in mind, there's a dozen different fields. So we're not putting out that many nurses a year. We're not putting out that many psychologists or occupational therapists, but in aggregate. Same thing in business. Per year, over 1,500 students in undergrad and graduate programs in business. Computer science, you can see the numbers, engineering and science. This represents 80% of our graduates. Important fact, 80% of our graduates go into the highest need and fastest growth areas. There's another 20% that don't show up on this chart. So, for example, criminal justice. We share with another academic institution in the state the honors of being the first and second largest programs in criminal justice. These populate important professions in police, security, police chiefs, where we have a very high number of our graduates, but they don't show up on the chart. But I don't think anybody would argue those are not important. Similarly, there's a lot of other fields that don't get necessarily reflected, but they all go in to contribute in important ways. So this is on an annual basis. As I turn a corner, start to wrap up, hopefully we won't need another intermission. Elaine, don't arrange that again. I know I talk a long time, but we should be okay. UWM at a crossroads. And this is, I think, an important perspective to take. If I didn't talk about this, it would be, oh, it's a great story, a lot of momentum. But the reality is, like most higher ed institutions, we have to look at the reality. And if you were in the business meeting this morning, you saw some things that talk about the inner workings. If you work through issues that we talked about in terms of what our provost shared this morning with regard to the things that we're doing around our outstanding learning environment, our chief enrollment officer, Katie Mayotta, talking about those types of activities this morning, we know we have to move in some different directions. So with the little structure, what I'd like to point out, as you see on this slide, is we're doing a tremendous amount with fewer resources. You do not get to be in the top 3% of research universities in this country by accident. There's a tremendous amount of intentionality. There's a lot of hard work that is taken to get there. So we're doing some things where we manage our budget responsibly. In fact, we are one of the most under-resourced R1s in the country. When we first attained R1 status in 2016, there were 120 institutions. The salary for faculty were arrayed. We were number 120 out of 120 in terms of faculty pay. We're at the very bottom. Today, with 131 in there, we're not quite at the bottom, but we're among the bottom. In terms of number of faculty, we're probably in the bottom four in terms of total number of faculty. Our faculty have gone down from about 4 to 5 years ago, where we had almost 850 faculty permanent tenure track. Today, we're barely at 700. So when I say here it's difficult to sustain in light of our dual mission around the additional resources that are required for access, as well as research, and again, we're the only one of those in the state of Wisconsin, the only campus that has both of those, and they're both expensive. It's very difficult to sustain that. Faculty are poached routinely. I've told you before stories about when I go to the national conferences, and one of the first things that happens is presidents and chancellors apologize, and they say, your faculty are so underpaid, it's the easiest thing for us to pick them off. It's disheartening. It's very frustrating. And so that's a real issue. Retirements, as they occur, it's hard to replace them. We don't have the budget. I cut $41 million out of the budget in my first 3 years as chancellor. That's not a growth. It's very hard to diversify. I want to become a Hispanic-serving institution, but it's very difficult to do that if you don't have more faculty of color and staff of color. When you're retrenching, it's hard to grow. So that's the crossroads that we're at. We're doing this responsibly. In fact, I would argue heroically. The incredible work ethic and admirable work of our faculty and staff. So this is my argument for making a case to think about the importance of reinvestment. The priorities, as you know, as you've supported, and so I'm so grateful for, are around compensation, around the capacity building, and around the capital budget. Those are some of the critical areas. There's more, but in terms of the most acute needs. Our graduates, I've shared already almost 190,000, and how they fill the talent pipeline, and they go on to such great careers. And they largely stay in Wisconsin. The research, I mentioned earlier, I'd mentioned public health. There's a lot of epidemics, there's a lot of diseases in this country and worldwide. Our School of Public Health, the importance of research, just in one school alone, is around what we know today. It's in the headlines all the time, measles, and childhood vaccinations, and the importance of that. But we can go on and we can talk about infant mortality. In Milwaukee, again, I hate to keep bringing some of these unfortunate statistics up, but infant mortality among African Americans is among the worst in the country. We have gotten slightly better. A number of different dimensions. The lead issues that have affected residents in the city of Milwaukee, teen pregnancy, teen suicide, a number of different activities, opioid crisis. I could go on and on, But our School of Public Health is studying these, working on policy, working on behavioral, working on clinical applications, as well as other parts. But that's just one school. Collaborations. I've stressed those, I hope, enough throughout these comments. It is about collaborating. It's an attitude that pervades what UWM is about. It's not territory, it's not turf, it's how can we work better together. That's been a theme that I've talked about since 2014. We can do a lot more. If we can do this well with our resource scarcity, think about what more we could do. So, in summary, we're a powerhouse. I think you see that. We punch above our weight. It's a phrase I like to use a lot. It's important for this region. It's important for the state of Wisconsin. We have, and we feel, it's in our DNA, a unique mission, and it's about commitment to serve. It's the urban location that's the largest economic hub in the state, and how we respond innovatively to these challenges and really help solve them. We're very focused on metrics. We're very focused on that, whether it's around employment, economic development, education, public health, and beyond. We're so grateful for your support, unanimous support that you've provided for our budget, for our needs. We need to keep persistent. We need to stay on that. We need to continue through the entire budget cycle. And I have to tell you, standing back at a personal level, I've been at UWM for 30 years. Some would say, time to move on, and some would say, so when are you going to retire? There's those conversations that come up. It's interesting. I don't have any plans on doing that, by the way, but Ray might have some for me. But I love this campus. I love the city and state. We have really moved up. The city, when I came here in '89, I think about comments people made. I came from outside of Seattle, and people said, yeah, we have like Nordstrom's, our Nordstrom's is Kohl's. And they talked about how our cuisine is the restaurants. I won't denigrate any further, but it was just kind of funny, the comparisons that were made. But I can tell you today, world-class city. I can tell you the sports, the arts, the vibrancy, but at the same time, 2 Milwaukees, like there are 2 Wisconsins in some ways. And UWM, as I've talked about before, is part of that triumvirate. What I mean by that is, as this city has grown, UWM has grown, and I think we're a causal agent. When I came in '89, we were a Research 3, R3, middle of the pack. Thousands of positions behind where we are today. That's no exaggeration. There's 4,000. What's the number? Chancellor Blank, you might know, in terms of number of R1s in the country, I think the number is like, it's over 4,400. So the point is, we were in the third tier, middle of the third tier. In 1994, we became an R2. So we were really moving up. To move up, it's hard. And we became, in 2016, an R1. I have seen this campus change dramatically. I saw part-time PhD programs that today are full-time, twice the number. We are doing things at a level that's unbelievable, and we're a crown jewel. Not just in the UW system, but frankly in the country. So it's that type of crossroads that I have to draw forward and say, with the continued investment, with the continued support, we can continue to do great things. So I want to thank you for that. We're going to continue to seize opportunities, make a difference, and strengthen the city and strengthen the state of Wisconsin. Thanks for your engagement, and sorry about our interruption here today. So. Very kind, thank you. It's a team effort, and I'm just so proud of our team. So.
Presentation, and you can see as we're here every year, the passion building, the unprecedented collaboration that's taking place, the responsibility of doing all of that in a responsible budget manner. Kudos to you, to your team. It's really, really refreshing to see, and we could have that happen on every campus, and we do. Yeah. But June is about Milwaukee, and you've certainly demonstrated that well. Regents, Chancellor Mone is certainly open to questions. Who's got them? Regent Klein.
Just a question on our work. How does it translate that it enhances the research? Where do the funds come from if you're R1 versus a different R?
So R1 is a recognition of the type of funding that you have, the number of postdoc students, the number of graduates, PhD graduates, and others in a variety of different fields. And it really is a reflection of who's getting the funding, where it comes from, but it does give you more eligibility. Grants, it's like success breeds success. And then being recognized as an R1, it helps when you're talking about actually receiving additional federal funding and that type of research. But it also has local impact. And the local impact is where we traditionally, in my previous roles, I would court companies for a lot of different partnerships, and they would hold us back because we didn't have the research standing. And they'd say, we see you as a talent provider. We can do research with world-class universities, and they would go on and do that. Today, that story is 180 degrees turned around, and we have companies that come in and testify, and that's our best friends for arguments with the legislators is having CEOs and having vice presidents of technology and research that tell that story. So the benefits are both in terms of additional federal funding, opening doors for that, but also the local partnerships. And I think the partnerships that I've talked about really are magnified by that. Yes, Regent Becknell.
Thanks again, Chancellor Mone. Really great presentation, and there is a great energy on this campus, which we appreciate for you and your team and faculty and the students. Can you give us a little more on the Data Science Institute? I think you indicated there's MIS, IT, CSI type degrees.
Yeah.
But give us a little deeper dive, and if we're at 470 graduates today, what's the goal 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Let me start with where this started. Our Vice Chancellor for Development and Alumni Relations and I were visiting with CEO of Northwestern Mutual, John Schlifsky, a few years ago, and he said, if I could get 40 to 50 more individuals, actually his number was a little more conservative at that point, but it grew to become 40 or 50 more graduates in data science a year, that would be so important and be very helpful. So Mike Lovell and I put together this idea to bring this together because there are loyalties, and it comes down sometimes to the pragmatics. The top IT person, the top person who was driving this at Northwestern Mutual was an alum of ours, and the head of their foundation, which is very important in these things, is a graduate of Marquette. So they told us right up front, this is not going to go to one of you. You're not going to compete. It's got to involve both of you. So early on, we started this collaborative approach, which, by the way, for us to do at this level is unprecedented. You just have never had that, as you probably know from being in the region. But the goal here is to increase for Northwestern Mutual. Yes, they have a self-serving interest, but that's the target that they have in mind as a minimum in that 40 to 50 range in terms of additional graduates. And I can tell you today, they already have many additional interns, literally today, and we don't even start the classes until this fall. We have the first time additional classes where we will teach them on site at Northwestern Mutual. So we'll have a lot of additional programs. We hired our first co-director. We had an interim co-director. They've been working on curriculum, research projects, and we've allocated part of the funding for specific faculty and student research projects. But it covers 12 different fields. And one of the powerful things is that students now have the opportunity to expand. In addition to like cybersecurity and a program in that, what we want to do is have data sciences opportunities across all our curricular areas, because it truly is something where there's very few fields that are not becoming more data science oriented. And we've had programs and partnerships, for example, with the Milwaukee Brewers, and we had Moneyball, the science of baseball, and we had several leaders of that from the Brewers who are actually adjunct faculty teaching in our data analytics program. Talk about a sellout. Talk about 400 people in one room, 250 in the overflow room, because this is just so attractive and so important a topic. And it's not like it's one of these hot topics today and in 3 years. It's probably the future. So majors in a lot of different areas. And one of the compelling things that I think is important when you ask for more depth, we have, and we're starting in our business school, in our areas in engineering and in our School of Information Studies. But this is also something that at UWM, we have data science across all of our schools and colleges. So many faculty have come forward and said, I am in data science. And an example of that, 2 of the top people in data science at Northwestern Mutual have been PhDs in political science from UWM. So, I mean, data science is just that pervasive, and that's the individuals who will grow and go across that. But again, it comes down to curricular development for filling the talent pipeline across all the different areas, research problems and the brand of this region as a tech hub.
Other questions from Regents? If none, let's give Chancellor Mone another round of applause. Thank you.